So good afternoon, JNF, and welcome to our Israel at 70 Plenary. We have an exciting program planned for you that was made possible thanks to the generous sponsorship of Bank Leumi. Andre Reutemann, Vice President of International Private Banking at Bank Leumi, is here today and has some words of welcome for us. Andre, it's all yours.
Hello all, and welcome to the Israel at 70 Plenary as part of this year's JNF conference. My name is Andre Reutemann, and I'm a Vice President of International Private Banking at Bank Leumi in Aventura office. Bank Leumi is especially excited to host this event with our deep ties to Israel and devotion to organizations such as JNF that focus on the continued success of Israel. I'm so glad to be here as part of the South Florida community, which is a key market for the bank and a community that I value deeply. We're proud to continue our long-standing partnership with JNF through the sponsorship of this conference and today's plenary. I hope you all have enjoyed the event so far. I would like to take this opportunity to quickly tell you about Bank Leumi in the US. The bank offers a range of commercial and private banking solutions to our clients in Florida, New York, California, and Illinois. At Bank Leumi, we pride ourselves on how we build and keep relationships. Our private banking group is devoted to understanding your personal and financial goals, and we work hard to customize solutions to help you achieve them. With your permission, I would like to phrase a quick verse from the Jewish Bible, the Torah, I feel connects to today's session. Even during war, God commands us to save the trees, because humans are compared to trees. Ki adam etz hasadeh. The tree has potential for growth, it produces oxygen for others to breathe, and its existence depends on its roots' connection to the soil. So too humans have potential for growth, have the ability to provide essential needs for people in need, and the connection to their land plays an important role in their lives. The tree symbolizes the essence of the human value, and therefore during war, when people can lose sight of their values, God commands them to protect the trees and remember who they are. JNF has a tree as its logo and has planted over 240 million trees since its inception, representing its stands to such values. You are here today because you share those values. Bank Leumi is here today because we all share those same values and we build our professional relationships based on those principles. Therefore, I would welcome the opportunity to meet and discuss more about Leumi with you. I hope you enjoyed this special session celebrating 70 years of Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre, for joining us. My name is Noreen Koppelman-Goldstein, and I've been involved with JNF for over 65 years. When I first paid 15 cents for a leaf to pin on a tree to be planted here in Israel. I'm also a proud member of the Circle of Sapphire, the President's Society, and Century Council. It is my pleasure today to introduce the Mayor of Bal Harbour, Mayor Gabe Groisman. Among his achievements, most notable to all of us, is that Mayor Groisman is responsible for writing and passing the nation's first municipal anti-BDS ordinance. As a result, he was invited by Israel's ambassador to the United Nations to speak at the United Nations headquarters in May 2016 for the UN's first anti-BDS summit. Please welcome to the stage Mayor Gabe Groisman. Mayor Groisman, We thank you for joining us here today, but please also accept this certificate as an expression of our gratitude for your great commitment to and public support of the State of Israel.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's really such an honor to be addressing such a prestigious organization like the Jewish National Fund at your national conference. I can tell you that it's incredible as a South Floridian that an organization of your stature would decide to hold its national conference here in South Florida. And what that is a testament to the strength of the South Florida Jewish community, which was built on the backs of many of you who are sitting here today, including my mother, Judy Groisman, who for the last 35 years has dedicated every single day of her life to this community. And because of her efforts and efforts of many of you today, our community is of the stature to receive such an incredible conference like the JNF. And also, on a personal note, I was married in this very room 14 years ago. So I have to be totally honest with you. First, because my daughter is sitting here in the first row, but also because it's the right thing to do. When I was invited to speak at this conference, I was both excited and baffled. I was excited about the opportunity to speak to you, but baffled about what I would speak about. You see, I'm the mayor of Bal Harbor. It's a small town just south of here, which has a very strong Jewish community, a very strong religious community, a very strong Zionist community, with one of the best shopping centers in the world. My apologies to the mayor of Hollywood who was here on Friday. Bal Harbor was founded in 1946, and through the 1980s, every single family home in Bal Harbor, including the one I live in today, had a deed on it, which said that the home could not be sold or leased in whole or in part to anyone not of the Caucasian race, or not to anyone having more than 1/4 Hebrew blood. That's where we were 70 years ago. 70 years later, just a year and a half ago, in Bal Harbor, I wrote and passed the nation's first municipal anti-BDS ordinance. The significance of such an ordinance in my town wasn't lost on anyone. And it wasn't just academic, the reason I passed the ordinance. It was because the United Church of Christ that summer had recently passed a nationwide boycott and divestment ordinance to Israel, directing all of its member churches to abide by that ordinance. And we have a UCC church in our town. So a few months later, as a result of that church wanting to expand the church and build a new facility, which would trigger the law, I was able to convince the church leadership to publicly repudiate and reject their parent church's call to boycott and divest from Israel. And I was able to convince them to withdraw every single one of their $2.9 million that they had invested in the United Church of Christ Investment Fund, which had proudly announced that it was divested from Israel. Thank you. As you've heard, after I passed that ordinance, I've sort of been on a whirlwind tour, speaking in different places, college groups, at the United Nations, recently in Rome and the Parliament, and I've been beaming with pride, not about what I did, but what the Jewish community can do when we try. I had pride in all the amazing activists that I've met in the last couple years who are working day in and day out to fight anti-Semitism and the BDS movement. So I was going to speak to you about the BDS movement and all the details, what we have to do to keep fighting it, but I think that would be a lost opportunity. Instead, with a group like yours, I think it's more important to share with you that for every Jew that approached me and thanked me for what I've done, there were at least 2 others that came to me and said, "Why are you sticking your neck out? Why do you care? We should really just be quiet about this and it'll pass." We need to address the biggest issue in the Jewish community in the diaspora today, and that's apathy. Almost 6 in 10 US Jews do not believe being Jewish is an important part of their lives. Only 3 in 10 attach an importance about caring about Israel. And only 1 in 3 American Jews under 30 say that being Jewish is even important to them. Something has to change. We have to strengthen the core of our community. We have to strengthen the base of who we are before we can successfully fend off our enemies. But let's take a step back for one moment. We, the Jewish people, have so much to be proud of. Just 73 years ago, smokestacks still hung over Birkenau as our people were being burnt in ovens. 70 years ago, we were stateless, roaming people, living at the mercy of our host nations. And we all know they didn't have much mercy. In fact, 70 years ago this month, in November of 1947, the United Nations held their debate on the United Nations partition of British Mandate Palestine. And I went to read the transcript of that debate. And it gives you a glimpse at how Jews were viewed in the family of nations 70 years ago. I'll read to you what the ambassador of Uruguay, who was voting in support of the partition, trying to help the Jews, what he said. He said, "Today the Jew is what he was in ancient literature, the wandering Jew, persecuted and execrated. When he multiplied and prospered, he is found to be in the way. But a pogrom would solve the problem temporarily in one night." And here in the US in the late 40s, many Jews struggled with their identity. There was an article I found published in the Atlantic from February 1948 called "I Changed My Name," where a Jewish American was so proud, sharing his story with the entire American Jewish community, how he and his brother changed their names from their Jewish last name to one that people really wouldn't know where they came from. And we had communities around America, like mine, Bal Harbour, 70 years ago, that wouldn't allow Jews to own homes there. But look how far we've come. According to Pew Research, today, Jews are the most highly educated religious group in the world, with an average of 13.4 years of schooling worldwide. According to the same poll, Jews hold the highest percentage of post-secondary degrees in the world at 61%. And importantly, it's the only religious group, we are the only religious group, where there is no gender gap in the level of education, 0 gender gap. And looking at our Jewish state, look at how much the Jewish state has accomplished in the last 70 years. There's so much we should be proud for. From 600,000 Jews in 1948, making up only 6% of world Jewry, to over 6 million, making up 43% of world Jewry today. And as you've seen, we have amazing innovation and technology coming out of Israel. But not just technology for the sake of technology, but impact technology that's changing the world. Like Rewalk robotics that are helping paralyzed people start to walk again. Or all the agri-tech that's going on, changing the possibilities of what a desert would look like. Or if you travel to San Diego, or China, or India, or Chile, you can see Israeli desalination plants helping people survive Israel from the desert. And of course, there's Israeli aid organizations everywhere, including the IDF, sending soldiers and search and rescue teams to anywhere in the world where there is a disaster. And the list goes on and on. And of course, the JNF is behind so many of these amazing efforts. We must recognize that we are stronger as a people today as we have ever been. And that is thanks to the rebirth of the State of Israel. The fact that the State of Israel and the Israeli Defense Force stands behind each and every Jew around the world gives us the strength and gives us the confidence to thrive wherever it is that we are. The State of Israel and the IDF are the ultimate symbols of never again. Yet, what's most troubling to me is the fact that the majority of Jews that I encounter, I think the majority of Jews in the diaspora, just don't see it. The majority of Jews in the diaspora simply do not care. And again today, with anti-Semitism on a meteoric rise, both in the United States, in Europe, in South America, anywhere you look, It's coming from the political right, it's coming from the political left, it's coming from everywhere in between. Yet as a whole, the Jewish community in the diaspora is responding to this with the same trepidation that Jews have had for generations when we lived in exile. First, we try not to ruffle feathers. We ignore it. Then we call these isolated incidents. Then we allow issues to be politicized. And we only recognize anti-Semitism and issues when it's politically convenient to us. Then worse, we blame ourselves, or we blame Israel. We equivocate. We integrate. And we separate ourselves from Israel and from our Jewish tradition. And I can tell you that earlier this year, I was at a gala dinner, I won't name the organization, here in South Florida, where their keynote speaker, the main thrust of his presentation was how we as Jews have to separate our Jewish identity from Israel. And others, in dealing with the BDS movement, the anti-Semitic BDS movement, would say things like, well, we sort of agree with you. Maybe we can just boycott these Jews that live here, but not these Jews that live there. This is the wrong approach. The apologetic, weak approach has gotten the Jews to in the diaspora to a 58% intermarriage rate, an even larger number of Jews who simply are not engaged. There must be a significant paradigm shift in the Jewish communities in the diaspora. We must not be afraid to stand up as proud Jews, proud of our heritage, proud of our religion, proud of our traditions, proud of our values, and proud of our Jewish state. Ladies and gentlemen, we are no longer in exile, and we cannot continue to live as if we are. And just as through thousands of years of exile, the yearning for Israel, Jerusalem, and Zion has integrated every part of our lives, whether it's our prayers or our weddings when we smash a glass for Jerusalem. I think it's imperative that the modern state of Israel, the miracle of the modern state of Israel, begin to permeate every single aspect of our Jewish lives today. We must remember the words of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who says, to be a Jew is to walk with pride, but never with arrogance. He doesn't say you must have pride. He says you must walk with pride. And what does that mean? It means that the pride has to be coupled with action. Today, a small town like mine, less than 10,000 people, can help spark an anti-BDS movement across the country, with over 50 cities passing similar ordinances and 24 states now passing similar laws. Thank you. There's college students here, I think over there. There are college students, let me hear you, there you go. Each and every one of you can make an impact. There's a student in Columbia University with an iPhone and an immense sense of Jewish pride who's affecting hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world, just walking around with his camera, standing up for being a proud Jew and standing up for Israel. We can all make a difference. We need to. We must all walk with pride. Each of you can effectuate change in your own circles, in your own communities, and in your own ways. It's incumbent that each of us realize and recognize that each of us has the responsibility to do so. And we must answer David Ben-Gurion's appeal in Israel's Declaration of Independence, signed just 70 years ago, for the Jewish people throughout the diaspora to rally around the Jews of Israel and to stand by them in the great struggle for the realization of the age-old dream, the redemption of Israel. Thank you, and Am Yisrael Chai.
אדם בתוך עצמו גר, בתוך עצמו גר. או באיזו עיר סוערת, או באיזה כפר. לפעמים סופה עוברת, טוב שבאת, בלעדייך וכבאי, והלילה קר, אז אני שומר עליי כמה שאפשר, ועם כל זאת האם אמצא אותך מחר. אדם קרוב אצל עצמו, אדם בתוך עצמו הוא גר. Na 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 na.
My name is Chuck Fax, and I am JNF National Vice President for Israel Action. Thank you. It is my privilege to serve as moderator for this plenary session, Israel at 70. As Mayor Groisman reminded us a few moments ago, on November 29, 1947, almost 70 years to the day, the United Nations General Assembly voted in favor of the partition of Palestine, paving the way for the Jewish state for the first time in modern history. Those unbelievable moments when the United Nations delegates voted on partition were recorded in audio and video, and I am sure all of you have seen or heard some of those recordings. On that fateful day, the great Israeli novelist Amos Oz was 8 years old, and in his autobiography, he recalled the moment. For much of the night, he was outdoors with his father, riding on his shoulders and celebrating with the crowds. At about 3 a.m., Oz finally crawled into bed, exhausted but wide awake, and his father lay down next to him. And Oz writes, and here I am paraphrasing slightly, quote, "My father told me in a whisper what some hooligans did to him and his brother David in Odessa, and how some Gentile boys beat him up at school in Vilna. And the Gentile girls joined in too. And the next day, when his father, Grandpa Alexander, went to the school to register a complaint, the bullies attacked my grandfather, and the girls laughed, and the teachers just stood there, laughing with them. And in the early hours of November 30, 1947, as my father lay next to me, he whispered to me, 'Bullies may well bother you in the street or at school someday, but from now on, from the moment we have our own country, you will never be bullied just because you are a Jew and because Jews are so-and-sos. Not that. Never again. From tonight, that is finished here forever.'" Oz concludes, "I had never seen my father cry, before or since, even when my mother died. And I did not see him cry that night. But on my hand, I could feel my Polish immigrant father's tears of happiness." That was only 70 years ago. Starting today, and for the coming year, we at JNF will celebrate the distance that Israel has traveled in those 70 years, and the special role that JNF, all of us in this room, and our parents, our grandparents, and our children as well, we will celebrate the part that all of us have played in Israel's wondrous journey. For this special anniversary, JNF has planned an entire year of special programming to show the world not only how far Israel has come, but how Israel's startling progress and breakthrough technologies in so many fields are helping to make the world a better place. This is the story of Positively Israel, a program with which I am so proud to have been associated since its inception 7 years ago. Many of you have heard our Positively Israel speakers celebrate the glory that is Israel. But there is always more to learn, for the beauty of the Positively Israel program is that the story keeps growing because the nation itself keeps growing its breakthrough technologies that are improving life both within Israel and outside Israel, throughout the world. If you go to our website, www.positivelyisrael.org, you will see news of the latest inventions, the newest life-saving medicine, the revolutionary technologies that are changing the face of Israel, and that Israel is exporting to the third world, teaching impoverished countries medicine and nursing, afforestation, water conservation, 21st century agriculture, and so much more. Third world countries that vote against Israel in the United Nations quietly depend on Israel for its guidance and assistance. 70 years ago, Israel was fighting for its life. Today, Israel means life, not only for our Jewish brothers and sisters from besieged countries who have found a haven in Israel. Israel also means life to millions of non-Jews around the globe. Our plenary session this afternoon, Israel at 70, is a powerful start to the year-long celebration to which we all look forward. This afternoon, you will hear about some of the latest developments within Israel that are changing the face of the nation and that are contributing to technological advances around the world. Innovation, entrepreneurship, diversity, these are the watchwords of Israel at 70. That is what we will hear about this afternoon. Those of you, and I hope it is all of you, who have been to Israel on a JNF mission, you know that each time you go, there are so many new things to see. For me, one of the greatest thrills is to travel to Israel with someone, Jewish or non-Jewish, who has never been to Israel. As unbelievable an experience as it is for them, it is doubly gratifying for me because I get to see Israel through their eyes as if for the first time. When Moses was near his death, God directed him up to Har Nevo, to the top of Pisgah, overlooking the city of Jericho. And the Lord showed Moses all the land, even Gilead as far as Dan, and all of Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah as far as the great sea, and the south, and the plain, even the valley of Jericho. And the Lord said to Moses, "This is the land which I swore unto Abraham, unto Isaac, unto Jacob, saying, I will give this land to your children and your children's children." We are Moshe's progeny. We are the inheritors and the trustees of the pledge that God made to Moses thousands of years ago. So for the moment, imagine, if you will, that each of us is standing there with Moses, overlooking the entirety of the land of Israel, from the north to the south, for the very first time. But what we see is not the land as Moses saw it. What we see is Israel as it is today, green and growing, dynamic, innovative, prosperous, secure. Today, and for the next year to come, we are going to celebrate the land of Israel, all that it has been, all that it has become, and all that it can be, thanks in no small measure to the work that you at JNF are doing every minute of every day of the year. Please join with me to welcome our special guests as they begin our guided tour of Israel at 70. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Seth Siegel, the author of Let There Be Water, Israel's Solution for a Water-Starved World. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person today. A conflict kept me from being with you in Florida, but I'm so glad that I could speak to you anyway about one of my favorite topics, and that's Israel's incredible achievements in water. Israel has been thinking about water in a way that most countries haven't for a very, very long time. Even before it was a state, Israel was thinking about how it would have enough water so that it would be able to welcome as many immigrants as who might come and to have a dynamic economy. Of course, they didn't anticipate in the 1930s or 40s or 50s that climate change would diminish the amount of annual rainfall by as much as 25%. But because of all that planning for so many years, they were prepared for it. So that although Israel is in the driest region of the world, even though Israel has had the fastest rate of population increase, 11-fold, since 1948 when it achieved independence, even though Israel has the third fastest growing economy in the world after Singapore and South Korea, despite all of that, Israel has an abundance of water so deep that it's able to provide water for its own people on a 24/7 on-demand basis, for the majority of the water used by the Palestinians in the West Bank, a lot of water in Gaza, a lot of water in the Kingdom of Jordan, and to still have an agricultural export industry. This was all done in areas as diverse as drip irrigation, as the reuse of sewage and desalination, and in many, many other technologies and smart governance, smart pricing, important education and cultural developments in the water area. This was able to be done because the country focused on water. Before I say goodbye, I just want to say an important word about JNF itself. Israel achieved most of this because it focused on this. But Israel would today not be the water superpower that it is were it not for the support of JNF. Myself and my wife, we are also JNF supporters. And I thank all of you who led the way. I thank all of you who continue to be generous to JNF, because that is a great way of helping Israel achieve great water independence and to lead the world in a period of ever greater water scarcity. Thanks so much, and maybe I'll see you next year at next year's convention. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Scott Shea.
It was the summer of 2014, at the height of the Tzuk Eitan operation in Gaza. I was in Sderot as part of a mission at a community center. We met with local residents who had spent their last few stress-filled days and long nights running to shelters with their children. In their presentations to us in English, they said defiantly, "No number of sirens blaring or missiles falling will move us from the homes we love and the communities we've built. They cannot scare us away." Now, as some of you may know, I seek any chance I can get to speak Hebrew. So when the group program broke up, I walked over to chat with some of the presenters, one-on-one in Hebrew. The barber who had been giving soldiers free haircuts told me he hadn't had a paying customer in weeks. The nurse from Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon told me that her husband's factory had closed and he had not been able to find work. Off the record, they found themselves forced to consider moving close to the center of Israel. Their security concerns were actually economic, not physical. They were more worried about their jobs than about missiles falling around them. During that same tumultuous summer, less than 2 hours north of Sderot in Tel Aviv, I had the honor and the privilege of being part of the largest exit to date in Israel FinTech. I was a founding investor in a company called Super Derivatives, and I'm very proud of this exit. We were blessed to do very well financially, even as the Tzuk Eitan sirens were howling above us. But I believe our greatest achievement was finding and convincing a buyer to keep the critical parts of the company in Israel. This is over 350 jobs today and growing. We all know there is no difference in the DNA or ability of Israelis in the flourishing center from those in the north and the south. Yet there is a chasm that separates the periphery from prosperity. And this chasm is wide and very difficult to cross. But how can that be in a country that takes less time to fly over than it takes me to clear security at LaGuardia Airport? I wanted to not only figure it out, but to fix it. Together with my partner, Kalanit Valfer, we spent several months researching every aspect of this Israeli reality. We saw great philanthropic activity in the periphery, led, of course, by JNF initiatives. We saw the Israeli government was committed with infrastructure and public incentives. We spent a lot of time visiting small and medium-sized companies in the Galil and the Negev, high potential, dynamic companies run by creative and ambitious entrepreneurs. And we asked ourselves, what was the missing piece that was preventing these companies, and therefore the local economies, from achieving their potential? We discovered there were two things striking in their absence. One, the lack of access to growth capital, and two, a lack of access to global markets. And we saw an opportunity, a thrilling opportunity, to invest for profits. And we knew if we were truly successful that we could accomplish something much more than just good financial returns. We could forge a stronger Israel. So, we created the Ella Fund, a growth impact fund investing in high potential, medium-sized, export-oriented industrial and mid-tech companies only in the Galil and Negev. We are not VC. We are not super high-tech. We are not startups. We are not Tel Aviv. We are not Herzliya Pituach. We are the other 70% of Israel's land mass and business opportunity. Our first step was to put together a world-class investment team with global deal-making track records and renowned expertise in marketing, finance, and operations. We are investing for a strong and sustainable economic future in Israel, a future that I believe the Ella Fund will be instrumental in creating. So let's look at what we're actually doing at the Ella Fund. We recently invested in a company that makes high-powered lasers. They have a technology to use a limited energy source to make stronger lasers with longer ranges. This has profound implications. For example, in protecting Israel through an advanced version of the Iron Dome that uses laser beams that cost cents as opposed to missiles that cost millions. Their next generation lasers also cut and weld to precision unachievable until now. A critical feature that can be revolutionary in a variety of industries ranging from 3D printing to automotive to medical and more. And the Ella Fund will help them expand into these markets. This company, now located in the center of Israel, had considered moving their productions overseas. With our investment, they are designing a streamlined, automated, efficient factory to be built in the Galil. Another company we're looking at makes sophisticated water filters for agricultural use. These guys, they look like those 1960s posters of kibbutzniks. They show up to meetings in sandals and t-shirts. But they are seasoned veterans and sought-after experts in the water industry. They have that Israeli entrepreneurial spirit and have developed an amazing innovation that can clean harmful organisms out of agricultural water without using pesticides. They started selling not too long ago, and their invention has already been in high demand in Africa and Latin America and has caught the eye of some major agricultural and water conglomerates. Our team will bring them the sophistication they need to compete in global markets and produce on a large scale in Israel, in the periphery. They get to stay on the kibbutz and spend their days off with their family at the pool next to the orange grove. Our vision is no less than for the Galil and the Negev to become the engine of Israel's economic growth, to make the periphery the people's choice, where thriving communities offer superior lifestyles. Through our impactful and highly profitable investments, we will build industries, invigorate production, and inspire the ingenuity to ensure Israel's place, proper place, as a global leader. The government must do its part with incentives, infrastructure, and good governance. Philanthropy is, of course, critical. Where would Israel even be without the JNF? But let's also consider investment, making money. In the 8 levels of tzedakah, the Rambam teaches us that the highest level of philanthropy is to support fellow Jews by entering into partnerships or finding employment for them, so that they need not be dependent on others. Maimonides was the first Jewish impact investor. I think he would have gotten along great with the Elephantine. With our kind of investing, we can contribute to creating prosperity in the Israeli periphery, as we ensure that the Negev and Galil are full partners in a thriving Israeli economy. Our laser company makes a light beam that is unrivaled in its efficiency, precision, and strength. Now that is what I call a light unto the nations. Thank you.
I am Kenneth Kiplangat Chepkwony, a 25-year-old from Kenya and a former student at the Arava International Center for Agricultural Training, popularly known as ACAT. Looking at Israel at 70 years old, we see a young nation, so vibrant, and which has gone out of its way to influence the developing world positively. My experience in ICAT exposed me to the practical aspects of desert agriculture. With this, I believe that I can feed my nation and solve and be part of the task force that would help solve the food situation in Kenya. Nevertheless, I also developed my passion. I got ideas that I never had before, and I have already started implementing the same here in Kenya. One of these includes agricultural photography. I discovered my talent in photography during my stay in Israel, and actually made a document. I actually wrote a blog about it, which I called My Arava Story. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a shout out to the Jewish National Fund, ACAT, and more so to wish Israel long life and peace, and may it continue doing what it does best. That is making the world a better place. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Titi Ainau.
Hello everyone, thank you to JNF for inviting me to speak here. I'm a little bit excited, I'm gonna leave it to you. I am Jewish, I'm immigration from Ethiopia to Israel. I was born in a small village that's called Gondar. We didn't have no internet, no electricity, and basically we live really, really simple life. We didn't have water, we have a wall. And my parents and my grandparents, they all the time dreamed to move to Israel. It was our dream, and we believe that as a Jewish, we need to live in Jerusalem. And in the end of in the end, sorry. When I was 12, I moved to Israel, and I moved to live with my grandparents. And it was not easy to move from Ethiopia, the third world, to move to the first world. In Israel, I need to wear shoes. In Ethiopia, I was walking out without shoes. I need to go to the school every day. I need to, have my own bedroom, my own restroom. In Ethiopia, we share everything, one bedroom and one restroom, everyone together. But I was happy, and to move to Israel has changed my life. And I joined to the army. I teach myself Hebrew alone, and I joined to the army. And I was a lieutenant in the army. I was in charge of 300 soldiers under my command. And I was, thank you. This is me there. And for me, as an immigrant, as a Ola Chadasha, I feel very, very proud to wearing these uniforms. And in the army, we didn't have discrimination or races. We have the army, the IDF. We're all green. And I had the opportunity to be a lieutenant of boys, and it's made me who I am today. And it's something that I'm really proud and happy to be part of it. And when I finished the army, my best friend decided to send me up to the competition, to Miss Israel competition. I didn't really know that I will win. I didn't plan that. But I went. It was like a huge story all over the world. And it was my community. I was the first Black Miss Israel that was proud about that. And for me, as an immigration to represent Israel, it was also make me more proud Jew. And I finished, I met the President Obama in that year with the Shimon Peres, in the Shimon Peres house. I was only, to meet them in that house with Shimon Peres, to meet Bibi, the president, and it's make me looking like I go back 10 years, and I say, oh my God, how my life changing. I have like one dream, and it's to move to Israel. And I didn't plan to do all these big things, and I owe everything to Israel. It's really changed my life. Thank you. Basically, Israel made me from a village girl to the cover girl who I am today. And I'm happy. As an immigrant, we are build Israel, and Israel build us. And I'm happy, really, really happy to call myself Israeli, Jewish, African, Ethiopian. With everything. So thank you very much. I was short, and it was the short one, the short version. And thank you to JNF. I'm doing tour with JNF, and I'm happy to, this is all this picture that you see, it's a college tour that I'm doing, and I'm happy to do that, and I have the opportunity to represent Israel, the country that changed my life. Thank you.
This is Daniel Birnbaum coming to you from SodaStream in the Negev. Israel, 70 years young. Not perfect, but doing pretty damn good. I'm proud to be an Israeli. I'm proud to be raising a family here in Israel, 4 terrific kids, 2 of whom are serving in the army. I feel that despite the overwhelming criticism and self-criticism, we are a light upon the nations. We're bringing so much to the world and leading so many revolutions. Here at SodaStream, I'm proud to be leading the largest sparkling water brand in the world. I'm proud to be part of a solution that helps eliminate billions of disposable plastic bottles that are so hazardous to our planet. I'm proud to help people all over the world in 45 countries live a healthier life by drinking more water instead of the unhealthy sweet stuff. I'm proud to bring employment to 2,000 people in Israel, people from all segments of society. Native Israelis, Druze, immigrants from the former Soviet Union, immigrants from Ethiopia, from Argentina, and from Cincinnati, Arabs from East Jerusalem, Bedouins, and I'm proud to employ Palestinians, all at equal wages, equal benefits, and equal opportunities.
My name is Alicia. This is Nabil. He's from Ramallah. He's Palestinian, and he's my boss.
I'm proud that SodaStream is living proof that Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestinians can work side by side and live together in peace and harmony in what we call our island of peace. I'm proud to be doing all this from the Negev and to fulfill the prophecy from Isaiah chapter 35. Yisusum midbar v'tziyah v'tagel arava, ki nivkeu b'midbar mayim. And the wilderness shall be glad, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. For in the wilderness shall waters break out, and streams in the desert, streams. But above all, I'm proud to put our Israeli flag on 50 million products that we sell to consumers every year all over the world. On a personal note, I'm proud to be the son of an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor who was a teenager on the Exodus, and the son of a girl from Jersey City, which is a reminder to us all that Israel belongs to all of us. Israel is the only place I can truly call home, and Israel is your home too. I'd like to thank you for everything you do to make Israel stronger and brighter, and I hope that you feel proud of what we accomplished here together. Finally, I'd like to invite each of you to come visit us at SodaStream and see what we see every day. Come see what peace looks like. L'chaim!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Omer Tzimoni.
Since following Titi is quite a difficult thing to do, I figured maybe I'll start with a short clip that will talk about innovation in Israel. So my name is Omer Tzimchoni. I was born in Haifa in Israel. A few years ago, when I was 17, well, at least it seems like a few years ago, I was representing Israel as an Israeli scout in the Friendship Caravan here in the US for a few months. If you haven't heard about it, I recommend you going there. About a year later, I joined the Army. I served as a helicopter pilot in the Israeli Air Force. After I finished that, I completed my degree in physics and computer science in Tel Aviv University. And I moved to the University of Michigan to do my PhD in human factors engineering. Later on, I was recruited into GM. I came back to Israel and helped put together the Advanced Technical Center in Israel, pulling together a lot of smart people into one place and trying to help GM with what we were doing there. This was the first time that I started interacting with the high-tech industry and the ecosystem that's around that, and I'd like to talk about that today. So my message here is quite simple. Three things. First, Israel has done incredibly well in the last 70 years in terms of innovation and technology. Second, Israel's strength is in its people, its culture, and the ecosystem. And third, I think that Israel is very well prepared for what's coming in the future. And we don't know what that is, but I'll get to that point and I'll explain why it is from the technology standpoint. So, going back to the evolution of the Israeli technology, we started in the 1950s. If you looked at the GDP per person in the world and in Israel, Israel was just a little bit above that. If you look now, we are 3.5 times more than the average of the world. The GDP per capita is around $37,000 per person. We started with primarily military technologies, those that kept us in survival. And as in the beginning of the millennial, in 2000, the internet was starting to boom, apps, mobile phones, etc. We used that opportunity in Israel for lots of startups to come up. Everybody's heard of them. And you can see some of the developments that came out of those startups and some of the exits that those startups went through as a proof of that strength. So there are a lot of ways to measure success. And interestingly, I've looked in the internet for all sorts of different slides, all sorts of different pieces of information. There are a lot of different ways to rank, but Israel has been ranked always in the top 20 around the world of nations in terms of its innovation. Talking about billions of dollars of export, talking about very unique inventions that have come out of Israel. Everybody's heard of some of them. You saw some of them in the movie, right, the clip before that. From nanotechnology to new media and internet to security, from health and life sciences through clean tech and the automotive industry and agriculture, except it's technology in the agriculture, and so it's called agri-tech. So there's been a lot of ways of looking at this. Following what was said before, a lot of that concentrates around Tel Aviv. Around 30% of the startup activity is in Tel Aviv, Tel Aviv or Herzliya, but very close to Tel Aviv. There is continuous growth in that direction, meaning there's a pull of a lot of those startup companies and the R&D centers into that area, even from Haifa into Tel Aviv. But what's very important in order to have that success, that innovation success, is to have the ecosystem. And the ecosystem consists first and foremost of, to my view, in highly motivated, very well-educated people. And it goes through funding. You need funding. The government is putting a lot of funding, governmental funding into these options, but also venture capitals, etc. The universities that are very strong and are not only helping students, breeding students, but also helping in connections and collaborations with the startups, with the multinational centers over there. And there are accelerators, there are hubs. So this is a huge ecosystem that, like I say, for a very large part of it is centered around Tel Aviv. I don't expect you to be able to capture everything that's in there in this slide. I have a busier slide later. But what this is, these are the companies, there's some of the companies, but most of them, that have presence in Israel. They have either R&D centers, some of them are very big, such as Intel, which has over 10,000 people. Some of them are relatively small. Some of them only have venture. But all of them have presence in Israel. They all talk to each other. There's a network and there's an ecosystem that helps those startups figure out which multinational company to work with. And if they don't succeed with this one, they'll go to the next one. So that ecosystem is very valuable and it's growing. So when you look at why is Israel ranked so high, one of the terms that comes up is business sophistication. And we've been ranked as number 5 in our business sophistication. That business sophistication is the knowledge of workers, the innovation linkages, the absorption. And I was asking myself, well, why are we number 5 and what does it mean? And so I went and looked into the Global Innovation Index that actually marked us as number 5. And if you look at the slide, you'll see on the bottom, 5th from the left, the business sophistication. And that's where Israel is number 5 in the world. This little small Israel is number 5 in the world in business sophistication. And if you look at the other areas, I want to focus on just one. Sure, there's the institutions. We have some issues there. We're right in the center, right in the middle, and that's because of our political system. That's because we don't have peace yet. But what I want to focus is actually the human capital and research. We're number 15 in the world in human capital. So why don't we focus just on that column there. In education, we're number 44 in the world. In tertiary education, we're number 62 in the world. In research and development, we're number 2 in the world. Something doesn't add up. So I tried to figure out what it is, and to my luck, somebody else had already figured it out, and that was the Minister of Education. So the Minister of Education, Naftali Bennett, said the following in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal very recently. Although Israel's schools are good, our secret weapon is a parallel education system that operates alongside the formal one. This is where our children learn to become entrepreneurs. And he is talking about 3 things. One is heritage of debate in the Jewish DNA. Very important. All the students out there keep asking why. Never accept what somebody else is telling you unless you believe it and understand it. That's what we were grown up with to believe in, and that is a very good reason why we're so successful. Second, the peer teaches peer model, meaning I can not only learn from my professor or my teacher, but also from my friend, and even from somebody who joins my company later than me. And then finally, the Army service. And I don't want to go into too much of that, but there are a lot of ways in which you can learn to lead people, learn to have responsibility, etc., where everybody goes there. So that is pretty much the answer. We are not leading in education, but we are leading in our R&D capabilities. I personally believe that we need to invest in education because it's going to catch us somewhere. We can't continue to rely only on the heritage of debate. We also need that education, especially in the periphery. So what are some challenges ahead? I can't, in the few minutes that I have left, talk about what are all of those challenges, but I can throw some of those challenges up here and say, in the next foreseeable future, in the next few years, we're going to have a lot of inventions and innovation in these areas, in financial technologies, in market technologies, in cybersecurity, Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, life sciences. And for each one of these boxes, I didn't bring it here, but I do have a slide that looks something like this. For each one of these boxes, I have a list of sometimes about 100, sometimes more than 100 companies, okay, that are invested in that area and that are working on solving very real solutions. They have a potential to be sold someday. They have a potential to put together a real product someday. Some of them already have products, some of them don't. They're working with multinational companies. And so I can show you that for each one of these items, of these items up here. But there's one thing in common to many of these companies, and that's where I want to end with why I'm so optimistic. Technologically speaking, in order for all of these to succeed, what we need is very strong artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. I'm sure you've heard these terms. Some of you may study this or know about this more than me. But in order to succeed, in order to make right predictions, in order for a car to drive itself, in order for a prediction system to help the health system, the doctor, we need artificial intelligence. And so this is where my last slide comes. This is the number of companies today that are involved in AI, in Israel. And therefore, my third bullet there, Israel, I believe, is well prepared for the challenges ahead, whatever they might be, because we're going to use that knowledge base in order to solve those problems. So with that, I'll thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Emily Chacham, and I was a runner-up in Stockholm Junior Water Prize, which is an international competition that brings together young people from all over the world that are working on water-related issues. The competition is sponsored by Jewish National Fund Water Fund and is considered the highest prize in water research for young people. In my project, I worked on developing nanotechnology-based sensors that are able to detect water pollution in real time. This experience has changed my life. It showed me that me, small little Emily, from the tiny country of Israel, is able to present her project on an international stage. It gave me the confidence in myself and pushed me to continue my life in this direction. Like myself, there are many other Israeli students that take part in such amazing activities and competitions. In addition to self-belief, we also gain new friends and build communities of people like us. Young people who are devoted and passionate about making positive impact. Those growing communities are the future of Israel. We are the next generation. We are ready for the challenge.
Hey Emily, catch.
The world is in our hands.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Joanna Landau.
I was wondering which song I was going to come up with. Hi everyone. A couple of years ago I was invited to a conference quite similar to this one. I was speaking on a panel of people who had decided to dedicate their lives to improving Israel's image, and that's what I do. And when the formal questions were over, at some point someone from the audience asked a very simple but very meaningful question, and that was, why do you do what you do? And as the others were answering, I tried to sort of think about it. For the first time, I've been doing this for about 7 years. And for the first time, I started thinking about, why do I do this? Why have I decided to dedicate my life to this? And I realized that it's not because I'm Jewish, even though I'm very proud to be part of the Jewish people. It's not because I'm a Zionist, even though I clearly am one, because I decided to make Israel my home. It's actually because I'm a mother. This is meant to, those are my kids, okay? I have 3 children. Thank you. They'll be happy. This picture was taken last year at my middle daughter's bat mitzvah. My son is about to be 16 and my youngest is 10. And when my son was about 16, same age when I was his age, I actually made a choice after my parents had decided to come to Israel. When I was very young, I decided to go back. Okay, I had a British passport, an Israeli passport, and England was still very much a part of my life. Clearly, I'm not Israeli. This is not the accent of a born and bred Israeli, okay? So I went back to England. I went to a Jewish boarding school, and I decided to do my high school in England at a Jewish boarding school, and then I came back to Israel, and when I did my army service, that was when I decided that Israel was my home. Now, my 3 children have 3 passports. They have a British one from me. They have an American one from my husband, who's Californian, and he came to live in Israel as well at a very young age. And then they have an Israeli passport as well by virtue of being born there. And my question is, what will my kids think when they finish the army and they look at those 3 passports and they decide where do they want to make their home? Will Israel be as attractive, viable, and relevant a choice as the other choices that they can make? And that is why I do what I do. What I decided to do at the time, this was about 7 years ago, I closed my company and I set up an organization called Vibe Israel, with the idea being that I want to connect millennials around the world to Israel. So I'm not just thinking about my kids, I'm thinking about your kids, Jewish kids from all over the world. What do they feel about Israel now in their 20s and into their 30s, and your grandchildren maybe? And you know what? Not just Jews. What about non-Jewish kids? What do they think about Israel? Now, we know that Israel has issues. We heard from the mayor of Baal Harbor about it. So this is obviously something that I feel very strongly about. And we decided to be very proactive about our efforts, and we decided to go where millennials are at, which is online, on social media. So we identify the leading icons of social media, YouTubers, Instagrammers, bloggers, and we bring them to Israel on a week-long, all-expenses-paid trip. And they get to experience the Israel that I live and I know. There's no politics, there's no religion, there's no debate about whether Israel is right or wrong. It's really about why is Israel relevant and attractive to these people, and we've actually partnered very successfully with JNF on this. So when we start the week, I try to set the scene for the people that we bring by trying to explain to them a little bit about Israel, the way I see it, and where is all this creativity and innovation coming from? Because when we use the term Israel, we think of the term creative energy. There's an energy about Israel that's literally palpable. You can feel it in the air. And so I give them a little bit of an explanation, and what I do is I take the word Israel and I turn it into an acronym. I'm not going to go through all of these things, but I want to focus on a couple of them. I'm going to jump straight to resourcefulness. So a little secret, don't tell anyone outside this room, but I wasn't actually going for the word resourcefulness. I was going for the word creativity, but there is no C in Israel. So I had to be creative, and I came up with resourcefulness. So let's talk about resourcefulness for a second, and it's interesting because Omer mentioned this as well. You know, it's not such a big surprise that there is so much creativity in Israel, because creativity is not so much an Israeli characteristic or attribute, it's actually a very Jewish one, okay? And in a country, wherever you have clusters of Jews, there's always a lot of creativity. So in a country where 75% are Jewish, it's not a surprise there's so much of that about. But think about it even deeper. When my kids went to first or second grade, they go to the secular system, okay? We're not religious, but first or second grade, you start learning about the Bible. And there's a story of Sodom and Gomorrah. If you'll remember, Abraham negotiates essentially with God about whether there are righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah before God goes ahead and does what he was intending to do, because there were no righteous people there, and he destroys them. And the moral of the story for a 7 or 8-year-old, and putting aside all the other morals of this story, the moral of the story is that you can negotiate with God, right? You can argue with God. You can challenge convention. Now, when a kid hears that, even if they're not religious, God is God. It's the divine authority. You don't argue with that. And you hear that you can argue with it. So if you can argue with God, you probably can argue with your teacher. You could probably argue with your headmaster or headmistress, and you could argue with your parents, right? If you've ever come across Israeli kids, you'll notice they're rather straight talking. They're absolutely nothing like British children. I can assure you of that. But that is actually what is seeping into our children from a very, very early age, that ability and even encouragement to ask questions, to be curious. And if you look on your, where am I? Left-hand side, that's the religious kids who are studying the Talmud, right? And they're using their mental capabilities and discussing and arguing. But that creative discussion is really no different to the discussion that a bunch of high-tech entrepreneurs will have at a coffee shop on Ahad Am Street in Tel Aviv when they're trying to hack the next problem. So that creativity that stems very much from the Jewish religion and the Jewish people and heritage is a part of what makes Israel such a unique place. Now, great ideas are wonderful, but I spoke once to the co-author of Startup Nation, Saul Singer. You probably are more familiar with Dan Senor. Saul Singer lives in Israel. I spoke to him once and he said, you know, lots of countries have great ideas, but it's actually the ability to take a great idea and actually make it happen. And that happens a lot in Israel by virtue of the army. I'm clicking, and it happens. Okay, so the army, we've heard other people talk about it. I think Titi mentioned it as well. The army is really very empowering on a very, very personal level. So when I came back from England, they thrust me into this 2-year service. I ended up being a paramedic. I got skills I never knew that I would get. People who go into the battlefield, and even in offices from a very young age. I look at kids now. I went to the army 25 years ago. They all look so young, right? But they're there, and they're doing what they're doing. They get leadership skills, improvisation skills. The Israeli army is not a very wealthy army. We have to learn to make do with what we have. So we get all these skills, and these skills are driven into the workforce later. As I mentioned, I was in the army 25 years ago. There was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no Snapchat, but it was the greatest, and I think remains the greatest, social network that any country can have. It is essentially a real leveler. It makes us all level. We're all on a level playing field. I loved what Titi said, that in the army we're all green. I think that's very true. And I actually learned today at the plenary that the Israeli army is the only army in the world that actually takes people with disabilities as well, which was fantastic, wonderful. part of what makes Israel such a unique place. On that level, it also empowers, of course, the nation. And this is also another thing that Omer mentioned, that there is this proximity in every place where there's innovation. Look at Silicon Valley, look at other places around the world. The proximity between industry and academia is very, very high, okay? In Israel, we already have that. We have good academic institutions, and we're a small country, so the proximity is there. What we have as another driver of innovation is the army. And I like to give the example of Shenkar, which is just recently been voted the 6th best design school in the world. Actually, it's an engineering, fashion, and design school. And there's a story about a girl there who was finishing her project, her final project, and she was creating a new cloth out of a sort of glass fiber. And as she finished, she took this cloth and she draped it over a chair, and it kind of made the chair disappear because it kind of created a mirror effect. And everybody in the room was really awed by it, and it was fantastic. And the following day, one of the other students went to his reserve duty and was telling his commander about it. And within a week, the Army's research and development arm, Mafat, was at Shenkar, taking a look at this thing, seeing what applications it could have for the battlefield, for example, you can imagine, and they actually invested money in it, and I have no idea if it turned into a viable product, but you can see that this is the way that ideas seep into the army as well. Okay. Nothing I did. I'm going to go over ethnic diversity, but of course, Michael Eisner, the CEO of Disney, said that diversity is a great force towards creativity. Diversity, people being different, is what makes Israel so unique and so exciting. It's all those conflicts that makes it such an exciting place to live in. And it is actually, because I work a lot with improving Israel's image in the world, actually the narrative of Israel's diversity is the one that breaks down the what people think of Israel to begin with, because they all think we're all the same, we're all Jewish, we're all Ashkenazi, we all are right-wing, and so on and so forth. It's not the case, and that diversity is very unique for Israel. And I'm going to end with legacy of entrepreneurship, because it really should be no surprise that Israel is the startup nation, because Israel, if you think of it, was Israel's first startup, right? What do you need for a startup? You need a visionary, a person with a fantastic idea, was also able to articulate it. In Israel's case, it was Theodor Herzl. He wasn't the only one who thought about it. Came up with the idea of the Jewish homeland, and then he wrote down the vision in Alt Neuland. He envisaged it for everyone, and he said the Israel that he wants it to be, and he wrote the book, The Jewish State, which was essentially like a work plan for the product called Israel. Now, when you start a startup, you have to be very clear about who your market is, right? In Israel's case, it was very simple. It was the Jewish people fleeing the pogroms. It was very clear who to focus on. But who is the venture capital fund that's going to invest in this idea called Israel? Well, of course, it was the Jewish bankers, Rothschilds, the Montefiore's, that sent their money to the Zionist organization and also to JNF and started to build this country. Now, if you want to sell your product, you have to have somebody who's very convincing. Chief marketing officer, of course, that was our first president, Chaim Weizmann, a man of great stature in the world, a well-known chemist. He went from one country to the next and convinced people that Israel, the Jewish people, deserved a Jewish homeland. And finally, you have to have that one person who is able to go and make things actually happen. That was our first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, the CEO of the State of Israel. So, you like the idea? So I'm going to end with one other wonderful elder statesman, the late, great Shimon Peres. He said a lot of things, and so easy to find quotes from him, but I love this one. He said, "When I was a child, Israel was a legend more than a reality. She emerged from a dream, and today she has surpassed that dream." Now we're here launching the first 70 years of Israel. The next 70 years actually are going to be ushered in by the next generation. And I know we have a couple of hundred of young college students here, and I have to say that you guys are next. You're about to take all the wonderful work of the Jewish National Fund and continue it. And I was at the conversation before about connecting millennials to Israel, and I saw you guys stand up there and step up, and I think everyone here in the room is in very good hands. Thank you very much.
Israel at 70 has so many facets, it will take us at least a year to highlight all of them. This afternoon, we were privileged to get a first taste, a first look at what JNF's program, Israel at 70, is all about. I want to thank all of our speakers, both those who appeared live and those who appeared on video, for that introduction to our programming for this coming year. And I want to invite each of you to join us online at our JNF website, on a JNF mission, and in community celebrations throughout the year as we continue our journey of exploration of our wonderful country, Israel, at 70. I'd now like to invite my dear friend, Dr. Bob Benedon, National Board Member, National Chair of our Speakers Bureau, and fellow alumnus of Makor, to come to the stage. He has come to the stage to tell you about the special mission to Israel that he will be chairing this year, Israel at 70. Bob, take it away.
That's all right. I'm not that bad. Thank you. I was a senior in high school. Free, alive, and 25 was written on a poster over my bed. Now, 45 years later, I'm almost a senior citizen. As I have grown up, so has our beloved homeland, Israel. I want to invite all of you to join me in April on Jewish National Fund's Israel at 70 mission. It will culminate with events you won't want to miss. I would imagine almost all of you have been to Israel many times, but if you've never been there for Yom HaTzmaut, Yom HaZikaron, you are in for an experience you will never forget. Israel's Memorial Day, Yom HaZikaron, affects almost every Israeli. They truly pay tribute to those who have sacrificed their lives for our beloved Jewish homeland. It's not about barbecues or sales. It really is a somber day, accented by sirens that sound the evening before and the morning of for 2 minutes. People stop, they get out of their cars, they observe this in every ounce of their being. It's chilling, emotional, and something you all need to experience. Then as the sun sets, the mood swings to celebration, the rebirth of the vibrant life and Israel as we know it. Concerts, fireworks, people out till all hours of the night. What a juxtaposition of emotions. There'll be 5 tracks on this mission, so there's something for everyone. And we'll all come together for a number of events, including Shabbat dinner, a solidarity march down Rothschild Boulevard, Yom HaZikaron with the Lone Soldiers, a barbecue on Yom HaTzmaut at Yitzhak Rabin Park. So while you're here in Florida, please go over to the JNF Expo and sign up with Talia Aviani, our missions director. She'll be happy to take your credit card and get you signed up on the spot. And come and celebrate Israel's 70th birthday with me. I promise, after everything you've seen today and this morning, you won't be sorry to be there. Thank you very much.